morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Razak, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading. And today is August 2nd, 2023, and today is Wednesday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, we're watching the markets really drifting as we're entering the twilight zone of the summer and less activity happening in the markets. However, no major economic events scheduled for today, but corporate earnings season continues. Today we have Qualcomm coming out with their quarterly earnings, and tomorrow we have Apple, Amazon, and Alibaba coming out with their quarterly earnings, so that may shake and rattle the markets yet. Now looking at the various markets, starting out with the Forex symbols, the Australian dollar is testing multi-time frame support, and as we look at the indices, the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ pretty much unchanged and drifting. And looking at commodities, gold remains unchanged, while oil inches higher to $82 a barrel. Now looking at the stocks pretty much drifting across the board. And lastly, looking at cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin gets that bounce. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So we're going to start with the Australian dollar, and it's testing support at 65.88-ish level. Now this has been testing quite often as it's buoyed between 68 and 65, and it's buoyed coming over the past year. So this is really just a continuation of its range-bound trading. So, you know, most of the times it'll bounce off of this. We've bounced off of this 1, 2, 3, 4 times, as you can see here, and I'm going to just show you with a pen. Let's just make sure that we do the work. There we go. That's a straight line as I can get. And look at that. Well, I mean, so suffice it to say, we will bounce on this area as well. So, but keep this in mind, okay? It did test it once before. The last time it tested it was in May. So if it does break this area, we may see it break down to the bottom of 65, and that would be our supportish area. So keep that in mind as this unfolds later today. Now looking at the other majors, not much happening. Okay, so I'm going to skip it, and we're going to go straight into gold. Gold is sideways trading here, very tight range from yesterday, going from 42 to 48, still relatively tight for this type of asset, but still, okay, it is bouncing off of that support, the 200-day moving average. Not a big trade, but a decent trade there, okay? So if you were able to catch that support, top on you. You know, if we look at it, we have a 30-day moving average of 1939. So anywhere closer to that is really major support. Now looking at crude oil, continues to inch higher to $82 a barrel. Now not big, but now we're getting into major resistance-ish area. Once we get into that 82, 83-ish level, that's major resistance area, multi-time frames, and we break that, we could surely go back into the 90s as well. Now, looking at the U.S. markets, Dow Jones yesterday retraced about, not much, about 50 to 70 points. Again, we are in summer trading, so this is the twilight zone of summer trading where there's going to be very light volume and not a lot of moves. Now, today and tomorrow may become that because we've got major news coming out of the United States and major news for specific stocks like Amazon and Apple, which are really big tech. Now, looking at the NASDAQ also just drifting sideways about 50 to 70 points, not doing much. But you see here, every time we go up, if you look at the spikes here, this is something to digress. If we look at the spikes here, every time it spikes to this area, it's a green candle. Okay, which means the markets are strong. Okay, whether or not it went higher necessarily that day, but that's holding up the markets. Whereas right now, if you look we look at the volume, it's actually down, which means on a down day, not much is happening. So not a lot of buyers, not a lot of sellers. But that's the point. There's not a lot of sellers, and in that type of environment, when you don't have a lot of sellers and every time you go higher, you have more buyers. That is a true buying market. And I wanted to just digress on that just for a second. Now, looking at Apple going into tomorrow's number, we're just drifting at like our highs, not doing much there. If we look at Facebook, also just drifting on our highs, not doing much there. Microsoft also just trading sideways. So the majors are really just consolidating mostly at this area. Now, lastly, I want to jump on Bitcoin, and we did get a bounce yesterday. Finally, okay? This hit that 28 800-ish level, and I said it's not really breaking support-ish level, and it may spike. And sure enough, this is what we get. And because the nature of Bitcoin, it's just a lighter traded volume asset, and it can get spiked, okay, in terms of, whipshot in one direction. And this is what happens, okay? So just keep that in mind, and just always be very defensive when you're trading these type of assets if you do decide to trade them. But keep in mind that these type of action is very hard to come by and to anticipate, because to get these type of spikes as we're, hitting on supportish level and the volume's not so clear, but you get that. We see it in 2020 retrospect. We see the clarity of, it was strong, okay? Because if you look at the volume right here, it spikes at this, at the spiking higher, it actually had larger volume. So, ultimately it has some strength to it, even though it looks like it's just trickling down. So it's a very deceptive kind of trade, but nevertheless, have to stick to the technicals with it. And if you're able to day trade it, even better. I mean, market action trading it is actually a big advantage of doing it. This is Fed Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.